I should be like you, Mel.
Ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Up the Cherries in all departments. And of course, this is the transfer show, the Utciad transfer show. And of course, I've got the two gentlemen with me who are on every week, part of the furniture now, I suppose you could describe them as. And of course, our long-time collaborator, Manny. How are you doing?
All good, thank you, Matthew. And looking forward to getting this final transfer show out of the way. And of course, tomorrow, it's back to life, back to the Premiership, and I can't wait for it. A lot of the business has been done, obviously. And it's like, the later we get to the window, the more hurried it is. And I'm not necessarily too fond of making things get rushed so close to the beginning. But, it is what it is. Some clubs just don't do their due diligence in time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you say the last transfer show. We've actually got another two coming up. We have one next week, and then the week after we'll be live on transfer deadline day. So a couple of shows still to come.
Agreed. But I did say this was the last show before the start of the season. So
oh, sorry, Manny.
I hope you can give me some credit there, mate.
Yeah, sorry. I but I thought I'd just plug those two shows anyway. But yeah, as always, buddy, great to have you with us. And quite a bit to discuss tonight, and a little bit to discuss on the Villa as well, which I'm sure you've got quite a few opinions on. And of course, and of course, with us is Dylan. Dylan, how you doing, mate?
Oh, great. Thank you, Matt. It's been another quiet week on the Liverpool front, and I'm sure we're going to talk barely about them today. But other than that, it's been another really interesting week of transfers, and I'm really looking forward to the Premier League. Getting back tomorrow. I know the EFL started last weekend, but I'm a Premier League fan and a non-league fan, really. So looking forward to it, and I can't wait to get into the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're all waiting for this weekend, and all of us are very, very excited. Let's, first of all, before we start, let's quickly just jump into the chat and just say hello to a few of those that are in there. And Reese, first one in, ready and waiting. And Harry's in as well, saying good evening to Reese there. And a howdy back to Harold. You're going to Preston away on Saturday. Why would anybody voluntarily go to Preston? To watch Jordan James debut. I'm going to see Candice as well. Deadline day, we will be there, and hopefully Mr. Reed will be able to join us for that one as well. But yeah, just before we do get started, a big thank you to Dylan, who's pretty much gathered up all the info for this show. I've had quite a busy week working on several other shows. So Dylan has kindly chipped in and put everything really together for this one. So a big thank you to you and for your research and all your effort. But just before we do get started, actually, one other little thing just to cover off, and that's this.
AFC Bournemouth fans, we have got something special for you. Up the Cherries has partnered with Kitbag to offer you special deals on your AFC Bournemouth shirts for the 26-27 season. Are you after the traditional home shirt made by Hummel? Are you after the away vibrant shirt in purple? Or maybe the marshmallow third shirt? Whatever your choice is, you can get exclusive deals, discounts, and offers through Kitbag and through the link that is on the screen now. Scan it with your phone, the QR code, and it will take you straight away to the Kitbag site where all the details will be. We will also be putting up any special codes that you may need. So go check out Kitbag, the leading sports goods seller in the UK and beyond for all your AFC Bournemouth goods. Kitbag and Up the Cherries, partnering together to bring you your shirts this season.
Well, there we go. Now with Kitbag as well. So, yeah, for any Cherries fans out there, do take a look at that. And talking of the Cherries, that's probably the best start for this show. We're going to have a look at some of the Cherries news. So, we've been after this goalkeeper, guys, from Freiburg. Which team is it?
Freiburg.
That's it. I think they've had a bid rejected as well from Marseille, and Napoli and Juve are said to be interested as well. Dylan, this one, I'm not too sure if this is going to materialise. I've not seen much more in the press recently, but what's your thoughts on this one? And have you got any knowledge about anything behind this kind of deal?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Noah Attabolu. He's a very young German goalkeeper, and especially with an ageing Manuel Neuer and some other goalkeepers leaving the German national team, you can definitely see him being the future number one for Germany. From a Bournemouth perspective, I think Jordi Petrovic is a very safe pair of hands, but with Europa League football, there's going to need some added squad depth, Worst case scenario, Petrovic goes down on match day 1 against Manchester City, then you're going to need a reliable number 2. So if Attabolu was willing to come in and Bournemouth could get him at a good price and be willing to play as number 2, potentially as the Europa League and Cup keeper and relying on Petrovic in the league, or vice versa, I think there's a deal to be had there. But if Attabolu does want to be a number 2, I'm not sure if he's going to agree to that. If he would go to Marseille, he's joining a great club there. Obviously, they were competitive in Ligue 1 and are always around those Champions League places. And Napoli and Juventus as well. Juventus have just got a goalkeeper over the line in Vicario, so I'd be surprised if he ended up there. But with Attabolu, he was a key member of that Freiburg team that got to the Europa League last season, and he's an excellent goalkeeper. So if Bournemouth were to get him, that would be 2 really top goalies at Marco Rose's disposal. But if not, I think Petrovic is very reliable, so I wouldn't see any downside for Bournemouth if they weren't able to land him.
Okay, cool. Manny, I think with Petrovic and the competition that he's got at the club currently, this kind of signing would probably have the same sort of reaction to last season when we brought Mandas in on loan. It kind of really kept Petrovic on his toes. And I think that's what this kind of keeper could do for him.
Definitely. And I do, of course, like the idea of him being the Europa League goalkeeper, because that's not small potatoes. And as Dylan mentioned, and as I would have mentioned, he also was a big part of that Freiburg team that reached the final, only to end up losing 3-0 to Aston Villa with the now Manchester United midfielder Yuri Tielemans and the now Chelsea winger Morgan Rogers, and former Bournemouth player, of course, among the scorers. And that Freiburg team obviously was, a team that overachieved that season and did as well as they did. Of course, I can tell you that they are currently in action against Motherwell in the playoffs for the Conference League and have equalised against them after going behind to a 2-minute goal. former German international Matthias Ginter with the equaliser. I think Atabolu, as Dylan has mentioned, is exceptionally, he's quite talented. He's certainly quite young and definitely could very well be the future of the German national team. If they do decide as well that they want to bring back Marc-Andre ter Stegen, who is, of course, now with Ajax, for, just a safe pair of hands, then that could also be an option. But Atabolu, definitely has a high ceiling. He's almost a little bit like the Japanese goalkeeper, Zion Suzuki, who's joined Aston Villa. Exceptionally young, but Japan already established as Japan's number one, and with a very huge ceiling in front, ahead of him, above him, I should say. He could be Villa's goalkeeper for the next, 7, 8, or 10 years, especially with Emi Martinez expected to lead at the very least at the end of this upcoming season. Atabolu will want to push Petrovic and challenge for that number one spot. But he will also enjoy, playing in the Europa League and the cup games if he gets his chance. And, that it would be a really smart acquisition that by Marco Rose if it were to happen. But obviously, he hasn't been named in the Freiburg squad, and his number one jersey has been taken by another goalkeeper. So I think Freiburg do expect that he will be sold, but they're just waiting for the right offer. So it will remain to be seen if Bournemouth do stump up the cash for him. I'm not too sure how much they're asking for him, but I'm sure it wouldn't be too steep a price that you can't pay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, I think from what I have read about him, he is an exciting prospect. And like Dylan said, he could well be the future German number one goalkeeper. So he would be a great inclusion in our squad, definitely. Let's have a look. Not too much Bournemouth news, but let's have a look at the next article. And this one has popped up a few times this week. I think you've also seen it as well, haven't you, Dylan? This one on Rhys Dottin, who's starting to attract a lot of interest. A very, very talented player. He's been at Bournemouth, I think, since he was about 8 years old. So he's progressed through our academy, and he's now 20. An exciting winger. He's somebody who I think really, with Europa League this year and more games, he's someone that could definitely come into the squad and possibly into the team and make a real impact. But yes, of course, his contract is up at the end of the season. So there's quite a few clubs, isn't there, Dylan, looking at this guy?
Yeah, you look at some of the names mentioned there, Leipzig, Leverkusen, Gladbach and Augsburg. These are established and really top Bundesliga sides. So obviously there's a talented player there to attract some clubs of that calibre. You look at Rhys Dottin, like you mentioned, he's a really pacey, really exciting young winger coming through now. And he's got some minutes in pre-season. Not a lot. We're looking at around half an hour, 20 minutes of playing time. So lots of cameos on the bench under Rosa. But you look how important he was to the Bournemouth under-21s last season. They actually got promoted to the Premier League 2, which is essentially the highest level of under-21s football for the first time in their history. So he was a key player in that squad, which were able to lead them to the Premier League 2. So for Rhys Dottin, like you say, I think they should keep him around, look at extending his contract, and I do see a player that could break through and definitely offer an option, if not in the Europa League, then potentially in the Cups and lower-end Premier League games as well. So if I was Bournemouth, what do we think about Bournemouth when they're doing their dealings? They're always very smart about it. So it was putting my money anywhere, I'd expect Rhys Dottin to stay at Bournemouth. I think there's definitely a player with lots of potential there, and I'm excited to see what he can do in a cherry shirt.
Yeah, no, definitely. And Manny, I mean, from maybe the business side of things as well, I mean, it would probably be in Bournemouth's interest to extend his contract, because at some point we might be able to make a bit of money on him.
Absolutely. You already have a situation with James Hill having come to the fore and established himself in the first team. And now if he plays 1 or 2 more seasons, you could even potentially sell him for a pretty good price. So I think there might be a lot to like with him. The big question is, though, whether or not Rosa will be eager to include Rhys Dottin, not just in the Premier League squad, but also give him a taste of European action. We are, of course, going to talk about Aston Villa, but there was this young chap at Villa, Jamal Dino Aloba, who actually got to play in 1 or 2 Europa League games. And in fact, it was his winner in Villa's final home game in the league stage that secured second place in the group and home advantage all the way to the final. And with table toppers Olympique Lyonnais exiting the competition, the knockout at the earlier stage, it meant that Aston Villa had no real obstacles. But not long after scoring that goal, he was sent out on loan to West Bromwich Albion. And it will remain to be seen whether or not he has a future under Unai Emery. But if you do have some talented youngsters who can and will add to the team, it will certainly be in your best interest to give them some more opportunities. And I'm sure Marco Rosa will know all about this. And obviously what happened with Marco Senesi and a few others being allowed to just wind down their contracts and walk away for free, I don't think that should be allowed to happen again, or at least not as frequently. So you've got a talent on your hands, and as you say, it's in the last 12 months of his contract. I think you're going to have to give him some first-team games this season, and then see if that can be a good carrot for him to want to extend his stay at Dean Court.
Yeah, no, good point, Manny. Absolutely good point. Just quickly jump into the chat very quickly. Connor, my favourite time of the week. Hope you're well, Connor. Had him on my football manager. He was very good. I'm assuming you might be on about the goalkeeper we were just talking about on that one. Tom, evening, lads. Sorry I'm late. He's in his local curry house. Hope you're enjoying that, mate. Everyone's saying hello there to Tom. Fancy plugging the curry house. Petrovic, yikes. See, I think with the Chelsea fans, I think there was a bit of some loved him and some didn't like him so much, but I think he's been fantastic for Bournemouth, especially on the back end of last season. So I'm quite a Petrovic fan, I've got to say. Morgan Rogers, yes, yeah, we know he's with you guys now. Supporting your local curry house, love it, Tom. If only you could do the same with your clubs. We want Manny face cam. I believe, according to Mr. Beasley, Manny has fog in his studio. Manny, is that the case?
Yes, it is. I mentioned actually to Craig when he was backstage that I had some fog in my studio, so I had to shut the camera off. Once it clears, I could switch on the camera. But it usually happens at the beginning, especially if there's quite a bit of moisture in the air, or maybe the air conditioning is running, that it could lead to some fog or whatever. So if you can't see my face clearly, then there's not really much I can do about that.
Yeah, no worries, Manny. It's just great to have you with us as always, mate. Let's move on to the next story then, Bournemouth related. And yeah, Scally on Cherries and Fulham's radar. Now, this is one you brought to our attention, Dylan. I believe this is from Sky Sports Deutschland, as they say. But apparently Cherries and Fulham both after this fullback.
Just realised I was still on mute. There we go. Who said I'm not?
All done it, mate.
Absolutely, I always have been. Joe Scally, a really talented fullback, very pacey, and got some great Bundesliga experience, as it says there, over 160 caps at Gladbach now. Like I mentioned before, a really established Bundesliga side. This seems to be quietly bubbling over all season. Obviously, Bournemouth might be after some right back depth after Araujo went in for his surgery, and Adam Smith with his age. So potentially if they want to add someone who can double as a right back and left back cover as well, if they need it, I think that could definitely be up Scally's alleyway, not to get stuck in a tongue twister there. But I think if there's a good price for him, I think Gladbach would certainly sell. Seems to be a lot of interest from around Europe, as it says there. Fulham have been keeping an eye on him, and Marseille are also in the race. So if there was a deal to get done here, I think there's potentially one at a good price for Bournemouth and for Fulham. Personally, I feel like Fulham would need him more. I've got Fulham pegged in for a relegation this year, and I think they could certainly need some more bodies in that defence after some of their losses this year. So if he was to go to Fulham, I think that's a good acquisition for them. Or it would be great squad depth to Rosa, who obviously did. I don't believe they overlapped while they were at the club, as it says at the bottom there from my research. I believe Rosa left in May 2021, and Scally made his first Gladbach appearance in August 21. So only a few months apart, but he's certainly a player that I'd imagine Rosa is familiar with from his time in the Bundesliga and how established he is over there. So I think this is a really fascinating player, and it would be smart business as ever from Bournemouth if they were to sign him.
Yeah, definitely. Manny, I mean, if you look at Bournemouth's fullbacks, we have obviously Adam Smith, who is a legend at the club. We've got Araya, who's currently injured. We have Max Aaron's back, who, again, I think may probably move on again. And then for left back, we have Soler and Truffert. And we've just signed, obviously, Sanchez from Seville. So do you reckon Bournemouth need any more fullback cover, Manny?
If Mikel Arteta were managing the Cherries, I think he would want an extra defender, and of course, we will be talking about that. But to be honest, I would say that you are covered, and it was interesting to hear Dylan saying that Scally has the ability to, play on both sides of the defence, both left and right. Although that always comes through with a little bit of danger because. You don't want your backup left back to be right-footed, which means that he can't really overlap, and he has to be somewhat more defensive in nature. It may work for some players and some teams, but I'm not too sure that necessarily would work. And of course, you've also got to consider that obviously the situation with Araujo, you said that I think he was injured, and he also was on loan last season at Celtic. And then, of course, you've got Smithy, club captain. I'm not too sure how long he may have at the club. I don't know how many years he's got left on his contract.
He signed an extension, so I think he signed until is it 28? I think it might be 28.
Yeah. So if it's 28, then
now. Oh, cheers, Dylan. I'm pretty certain that he signed an extension anyway. Or it's got a year option on the extension that he's signed. There's something like that. But do you know what, Smithy? He's as fit as a fiddle, and he is, he's definitely still up there. I mean, you look at him during pre-season, and he's well up there with the best runners, and he's done so well to keep himself so fit to play at the top level. I definitely do think he will have a couple of years left in him at the top level, definitely. But
if you wanted it, Matt, it was just a 1-year extension. So as it stands, it runs until the end of this season.
End of this season, right? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So it could very well be, of course, that if Rosa decides that he would like to, move on from Smithy, and that maybe Smithy can, play out the rest of his career elsewhere, just like Steve Cook was able to do, then Scally could very well be an investment for the future in that regard. But again, if you have so many defenders, the mitigating circumstances that you will have 4 competitions, 2 domestic cups, the Europa League and the Premiership. So you would think that all your defenders will get opportunities to play. But I also think that for Scally, it would be quite nice to experience the Premier League, and certainly the American connection with Bill Foley and obviously Tyler Adams at the club might make him feel at home. So it could very well be a good acquisition. If you end up waiting until the end of the season when Scally's contract expires, then you might not be the only club who would want to move in for him, and you can't take a chance that he would be willing to come over to the southeast coast of England. But if you are willing to stump up what Gladbach want for him in lieu of his contract being over this upcoming season, then you could go for it. It could be an investment for the future because we don't know how much longer Adam Smith will be at the club, and then there is also a lot of uncertainty about Araujo as well. Don't forget, and there was another issue, of course, regarding a right back. His name will not be mentioned, but we all know what happened, and I think it could be an investment for the future. And of course, Harry, if you're still in the chat, I wonder if Smithy were to come down to your Indian restaurant, maybe they'd make him a special order. You know what I'm talking about: chicken boona, lamb boona, prawn boona, mushroom rice, a bag of chips, keema naan, 9 popcorns, and don't forget the saga aloo.
That was impressive, Manny. I like that.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, let's see what happens. I mean, Marco Rosa has come out and said that, we are ready to compete in all competitions. So maybe a little bit more depth in this position is required. But we will see if this talk turns into a real transfer between now and the end of the window. But moving on, and again, more speculation about Tyler Adams. So a reliable Manchester United journalist, Dylan McBennett, he also says that Liverpool are still monitoring him, as well as Man United. Dylan, you got some more on this one?
A little bit, yeah. Look, we can talk about how important Tyler Adams is for Bournemouth. We spoke about it a lot in the past few weeks, and the speculation seems to drag on. And I imagine it'll probably drag on until the window slams shut on September 1st. But in terms of Manchester United, they've obviously accelerated talks to go and sign Carlos Baleba from Brighton now. So that pretty much completes their midfield rebuild as far as I'm aware. I don't imagine they'd be able to bring in a fourth, especially if they were able to. Why would they prioritise over getting that left back they desperately need, in my opinion? But from a Liverpool standpoint, it seems like talks are still going to continue. At least there will be rumours of talks going on. Liverpool's transfer business has been awfully slow this summer, and I'd be surprised if they were able to get a midfielder in to replace Curtis Jones or to add a bit of depth to the position, let alone anyone else like the likes of Bradley Barcola, Yakuba Minter or Ibrahim Mbai. So for Tyler Adams, I do think these kind of rumours will drone on. There are a lot of teams that could still do with another midfielder. I think Manchester City, after they sign Buadi, will they want just one more body in there? I wouldn't be surprised to see him linked there. Tottenham as well, they could still sell some midfielders, so maybe he'll get linked there as they continue to rebuild their midfield. Chelsea as well, it seems like a lot of the rumours have called around Alex Scott. Maybe they'll reignite their interest from a couple of years ago, go after him once more. And like I said, Liverpool will probably still get linked with him. So for now, I don't think he's going to be going anywhere, but these rumours will continue to drag on. Liverpool will prioritise the right winger, in my opinion, and I'd be surprised to see Adams anywhere but Dean Court next season.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. Manny, would you agree with that Tyler Adams isn't going anywhere and he will remain at Dean Court for the rest of this season?
It's interesting, Matthew, because I do believe I mentioned in an earlier stream when Craig was hosting that with Tyler's injury problems, sometimes you have to take a little bit of a gamble on whether or not it wouldn't be a bad idea to sort of sell him rather than keep him on. If there are going to be doubts about his fitness and availability for the season, especially with 4 competitions, if you have an opportunity to get some good money for him, it wouldn't be a bad idea to necessarily take it. The only problem is it's interesting. It's interesting, of course, how Manchester United are in for him. That's going to be a bit of a concern for their young midfielders, Kobbie Mainoo and Amad Diallo. They've already signed, of course, Yuri Tillemans from Aston Villa. Yeah. So there are going to be a lot of midfielders in that squad. Maybe Carrick, being a midfielder, loves his midfielders. Although ironically, Arteta was a midfielder, but he likes his defenders a lot more. But and of course, Liverpool. Being in for him is quite interesting. Obviously, the Areola factor. Milos Kerkez also being there. He will be, in familiar company. But again, you've also got to consider, is there room for him in that central midfield with the likes of Szoboszlai and Curtis Jones, even Wataru Endo, who sadly missed the World Cup with an injury. He might be back to full fitness and may possibly play some role unless Areola decides that maybe it would be better to give the Japanese former captain a new challenge elsewhere. It could very well be that Tyler will stay at Dean Court, probably because the offers for him may not really suit him at the moment. But again, he's one player that will probably be discussed in the coming weeks and months as the season progresses. And hopefully he will stay fit and do very well, because I do like him. I do rate him as a player.
Yeah, no, totally. And I've got my fingers crossed that he will remain at Bournemouth for the rest of the season, because he's going to be very, very important, obviously, with the European campaign and obviously the Premier League as well. So, yes, I'm hoping we keep him, and I'm pretty certain we will. He'll be in a Bournemouth shirt for the rest of this season. But that rounds off the Bournemouth news. But let's just jump into the chat. There's a few more comments. And Mr. B, great to see you, buddy. Hope you're well. Big up, lads. Evening, Mr. B. from Harry there. Long time no see, Mr. B. Buzz buzz. Reminds me of the old Gaza song, Fog in the Studio is all mine, Fog in the Studio is all mine. That's brilliant.
Yeah, I remember that song very well. A big hit that with Linda's Spot.
Yes.
Sort of piggybacking off that Italian 90 hype. Good
Yes,
track. Lovely that Gaza was.
definitely.
Does he still live in Bournemouth, by the way, near Dorset?
Yeah, he's still around here. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he is still
Try
around
and get him on the channel once if you can. I don't think he played for Bournemouth, but it would be lovely to get him on. Yeah.
Yeah, he's actually my one of my footballing heroes. I would love to. I actually know a few people who do see him regularly. Whether we could get him on or not, I'm not sure. But it would be excellent if we could. If I remember rightly, I think that song come out at a similar time to, is it Diamond Lights with Glenn Hoddle?
No, mate. Diamond Lights actually was sometime in the 80s, I think. It was Hobble and Wobble, if memory serves me right.
That's right.
I did mention it. It was after Italia 90, and by that time, Hobble wasn't in the England picture anymore. Waddle still was. I would have loved to have seen Waddle and Gaza do a duet, right pair of Geordie tops, if you will, but it is what it is.
Big up everyone in the chat. A right scallywag. I think that's what we were talking about. The fullback Scally. After an American player called Tanner Tessman. Ever heard of him, Dylan? Manny?
Can't say
no, not familiar with him at the minute. No.
Mulder and Scally. Change of scenery today. Yeah, I was thinking that, Dylan. Are you in a different room?
Yeah, I shook it up a little bit. The Wi-Fi's been awfully patchy in our house, so I'm trying to go in a place where it's been best this week. So yeah, and so far so good, but I don't want to curse it.
Yeah, no more. We're saying no more. A Ruby Murray sounds a bit like Del Boy. Remember when we got a Tyler Adams? Here we go before Casado. What a time to be alive. Just hit the like button with a 5-star frog splash. Dylan,
are you aware of this, Matt? Do you know what a 5-star frog splash is?
No.
It's a wrestling move, which Tom knows. He said the wrestler RVD would be very proud of. RVD, of course, being Rob Van Dam. So me and Tom, we know all the moves. Unfortunately, nowhere near the skill to execute them.
Right. Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm not up on the whole wrestling thing. I'll be honest. So that's why that completely caught me off guard. I didn't know you had the mobility for a 5-star frog splash, Reese.
Maybe he does.
And 86 Hoddle and Waddle. Yeah, thank you, Mr. B. Thank you. Yeah, great tunes on Spotify. Give it a listen if you haven't already. Right, let's move on then to other news from across the Premier League and across Europe. And unfortunately, no non-league stuff this week, lads. You will be a bit upset, but I will make sure there's some non-league stuff in for next week. Definitely. It has been a very busy week. But we're very touched briefly on this because obviously I think we've spoken about this guy for the last couple of weeks, but the deal has been done. He's there with the shirt in his hand. And Barcelona have paid 65 million for his services. Manny, let's come to you on this one first. We're not surprised, are we? And I think this is one of those sort of transfer stories that you hope gets done and dusted as quick as possible and doesn't keep dragging like it sort of started to look like it was going to.
Yeah, obviously, Matthew, you hit the nail on the head. The longer stories drag, the more cumbersome they can become. And I think it got to a point where just before the start of the season, everyone just wanted this to be done and dusted. I think Real Madrid would not be best happy, but it seems to me that Rodrigo took a look at Jose Mourinho managing Real Madrid and decided, nope, that's not for me. I'd rather work with Mr. Herr Flick at Barcelona. And it amazes me how, despite all their financial problems, they're able to afford all of these players. We don't even know how much they sell some of their players to fund all of their transfers. But I guess it's the recognition. It might be the name. I know it's sour grapes and all of that in this age of FFP, PSR, SCR, and what have you. But you know, it's obviously a good move for Barcelona to get the Spanish captain just fresh, of course, from winning the World Cup. Although I will maintain that he had no business being awarded the Golden Ball. Should have gone to Lionel Messi, absolute star for the tournament. But you know, this is the thing about Rodri. He goes under the radar, as we all know, but then you just know that he will be that man in the engine room that keeps everything ticking over. And if you stop him, you almost effectively stop Spain. But sadly, a large number of teams just haven't been able to latch onto that. And it's also good that he's going back to Spain at this stage in his career. Hopefully, you know, he can stay injury-free from the intensity of the Premier League. And he should have a big role to play for Barcelona in the coming seasons, especially with Real Madrid eager to try to wrest back their former glory. You know, he's going to be a more than pivotal figure for that team. And it's a sort of a relief that it's happened now, better than that now than much, much later. And all I can say is good luck to him.
Yeah, absolutely. And good comment there from Reese on this one. But Dylan, very quickly, mate, glad this one's all over and put to bed.
Yeah, me too. Like Manny said, it's a saga that's really dragged on. And I think if you'd have said to people about a month, 6 weeks ago, that he would surely be a Real Madrid player, that seems to be where it was all going. And then just like that, they stalled on paying. Barcelona coughed it all up. And now he's a Barcelona player. For me, I think this could be the signing that finally gets Flick over the line to win a Champions League with Barcelona. He's gone back-to-back in La Liga in the past 2 years, and I think this could finally be the deal that gets him over the line. They've still got to add a bit of attacking firepower for me. Obviously, aren't going to be able to get Julian Alvarez, and Robert Lewandowski has gone. But from a midfield perspective, with the likes of Pedri, Fermin Lopez, Dani Olmo, it's a really stacked midfield, and I think Barcelona are going to be, once again, a force to be reckoned with. So from a saga point of view, I'm glad that it's over. And from a player point of view, I'm looking forward to watching Barcelona this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's have a look at the next story that we have got tonight, and that is that United are after the same Brighton midfielder that I think they've been after for the last, couple of years, haven't they now? But I believe Brighton were at one point holding out for 100 million, but I think I've read this evening that they're willing to take 65 now. But you never know what to believe until it's actually officially announced. But Dylan, this deal, do you think United will get this one across the line?
I do, yeah. I think they'll finally complete that midfield and get that really big athletic presence, a real ball winner, just to sit in front of the defence while they can let Andre Santos and Tielemans also probably doing a bit of ball winning, but driving that ball forward through the lines to the likes of Mateus Cunha, Bruno Fernandes, Brian Mbeumo. So we'll see about that. For Brighton, I think maybe they should have just bit the bullet and cashed in on him last year. I think United probably would have paid that around 90 to 100 million mark, but that's hindsight, isn't it? And it's a wonderful thing. Yeah. So for now, I still feel like they're getting an excellent price. For me, I don't think Baleba had a great season, burdened by a couple annoying little injury issues. But when he was playing, he still played an important role for Brighton, but wasn't at the same quality as we've seen him in recent years. I've seen the likes of United, Chelsea, and Liverpool linked with him. So for now, United are getting a decent midfielder, still very young. Remember, he's nowhere near finished or coming into his prime yet. So United are going to have a midfielder that's going to be around for years. And for Brighton, they're still getting a brilliant amount of money to then go and get another midfielder before the transfer window is over. So, like you said, if it's around 65 million, 70 million pounds, I don't think United will pay any more than that. So I think it will get done around that mark. And I think Carlos Baleba will be a Man United player sooner rather than later.
Cool. Yeah, totally get where you're coming from there. Manny, so if Carlos joins United, you've briefly touched on like Mainu. What do you think will the future hold for players like Mainu at United? Is it a case that it's time for them to maybe branch out and move on, or maybe possibly get a loan deal if Carlos comes in?
It looks as though, I have to say this, it looks as though that Dylan is a believer that Carlos will sign for United. And getting back to your question, Matt, it could very well be that Mainu will have to accept a loan deal unless Carrick can try and sweet talk him and Diallo into staying. Because again, they're playing in the Champions League as well. Don't forget. And one thing which is which connects teams like United and yourself, albeit the fact that you're in the Europa League, is that every single team will play 8 games in the league stage, and you're going to have a selection of teams that aren't really up to it and are just there to make up the numbers. It has to be said. I'm sorry for being a little bit blunt, but that is the way it is. So it could very well be that the likes of Mainu and Diallo will get some games to play in Europe. They'll definitely be expected to feature in the cup competitions. But the thing about Mainu is, as well, we all know, he was a big part of the England squad as well, which got to the Euro final in 2024 under Gareth Southgate. And then fast forward 2 years later, he wasn't even in the picture for the World Cup under Tommy Tuchel. So it's sad, and it's more a case of how the how a bright star has just started to fade a little bit. I shouldn't be saying that because Mainu is still quite young and still can offer a great deal. And now, of course, there was talk about United signing Miles Lewis-Skelly from Arsenal to play in the left-back position. I'm going to tell you right now, that guy is a central midfielder, not a left-back. So there is a great deal of uncertainty around the futures of Mainu and Diallo. And unless Michael Carrick can sweet-talk them and convince them to stay, saying that they will get some minutes and play an important part in their season, it could very well be that they will have to go out on loan. And mind you, last season when Carrick worked his magic, he did use Mainu a great deal, and Diallo as well. So it seems a little bit unfair to me that he would just want to, sort of sideline. But again, as you've mentioned or insinuated, it could very well be that the loan deal might be the best thing for them so that they can, get some confidence and then come back to United the following season ready to challenge for more minutes. And of course, there is going to be some flux. We don't even know if Carrick will still be the United manager at the end of this upcoming season because so much can happen. You never know. So I would say yes, it could very well be that those youngsters will have to go out on loan. But again, there is so much that can happen, and maybe we'll see them staying and playing a little bit of a role. They're so middle heavy at the moment with regards to midfielders, and once they get Believer in, they'll be even more middle heavy. You could say you could say that they might have a bit of a spare tire, but Carrick has to do what he believes is best, and if that means getting Believer in, then so be it. And we'll just have to see what happens with Mainu and Diallo and maybe one or two of the other players in the squad who might be fringe players at this rate.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, see what develops between now and the end of the window. But some fair points there, Manny, especially with would Carrick want to sideline him after using him so much towards the end of last season. So yeah, we'll see how that develops and we'll see what happens. But Manny, on to some stories about Villa now. So they've added to the squad this week. Couple of impressive sidings here, Dylan. I was very impressed that they managed to sign the Japanese international goalkeeper. I think at one point he might have been edging towards PSG, but I believe there was some agent fees that might have sort of disrupted that deal, and he's now at Villa. I think that's an excellent signing. Briefly, just give us a overlay on these two signings for Villa.
Yeah, so first of all, we're looking at more left depth for Aston Villa. Obviously, Lucas Digne did leave due to his release clause, and he's gone back to PSG. And now they've got Matteo Ruggeri. I've tried my best pronunciation there. From Atletico Madrid, he spent some time in Italy, came through, I believe, the Sassuolo Academy. Then he spent some time at Atletico Madrid under Diego Simeone, and now he's trying his hand in the Premier League. I think that's great left-back depth for Aston Villa. I'd still expect them to go with Ian Maatsen in the biggest games this year, but he's great experience and great depth. And then you're looking at Zan Sasuke, a really impressive young goalkeeper. Really impressive for Japan at the World Cup and turned a lot of heads, including those in Paris Saint-Germain. Tried to go after him after the failed signing of Lucas Chevalier last year. They tried to bring him in. He was meant to be the next best thing in the French league in terms of goalkeepers, but unfortunately never really came into any form at PSG. And now he's been reduced to a third choice goalkeeper still the second choice behind Safanov as they pursue another goalkeeper, with Suzuki going to Aston Villa instead. As it says there, he was on the verge of joining PSG. There was an agreement between Parma and the European champions, but instead the agent demanded too much money. PSG pulled out, and that's where Aston Villa swooped in and were able to sort the deal out. So Emi Martinez seems likely to be on his way out. It seems very heavy speculation that he was going to go to Juventus, but that deal collapsed after Juventus didn't want to meet Villa's asking price. So whether he ends up somewhere else or he's reduced to being the number 2 for Villa this year, let's see with that one. I wouldn't be surprised if he makes a deal to maybe somewhere else in Italy, if Napoli are after a goalkeeper, or potentially in Saudi Arabia. That always seems like they come swooping in for stars like Martinez, who they can afford the big wages of. But Suzuki is expected to be Aston Villa's new number 1 as they try and move on from Emi Martinez. And I think, like you said earlier, Matt, these are 2 really smart pieces of business in a summer that has been really tumultuous for Aston Villa. They've lost a lot of stars, but I feel like they've replaced them pretty well. Digne gone, Ruggeri in. Martinez probably on his way out, Suzuki in. Rogers gone, Manzambi in, and then Tielemans gone, João Gomez in. So I think they've had a really good replacement window, Villa, obviously with FFP. They've lost a lot of stars, but I think they've replaced them really well. But we won't know that until the ball is kicked, I suppose. But on paper, I think they've done well, and they can be proud of the replacements that they found. But like I said, let's just wait until Sunday when they face a tough test against Brighton in the first game of the year for them.
Yeah, no, definitely. And Manny, obviously you're a big fan of Martinez. But if he is to become number 2 keeper this year, or if he does move on, Suzuki, is he a really good replacement, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. And, a lot there have not been enough good things to be said about him. He certainly has the quality. The only issue is, signing him to be the number 1 will always be fraught with a little bit of risk because he hasn't trained with them pre-season. He hasn't, during pre-season, he hasn't played any of the pre-season games. And Martinez, of course, was told that he could have 4 weeks off after his exploits in the World Cup, where he, was a part of the Argentinian team that went to the final, and literally was the one person who was standing between Spain and winning the whole thing. Had Argentina won, he would have been man of the match for the final, and he would have had a deserved second World Cup winners medal, but sadly it wasn't to be. But just goes to show he's human. He's not immortal. And I've been a huge fan of him over the years, and I just think, he's been in many ways hung out to dry because he's had that finger injury, and people need to remember that he broke his finger during the warm-up for the Europa League final as Aston Villa won. And there was talk about whether or not he would have to have surgery. But then when he was told that having surgery on that broken right ring finger of his would jeopardize his World Cup chances, he said, you know what? I've got to do what a lot of wicket keepers in cricket do, and that is just take a cortisone injection and put on the splint and play through the pain. And I thought, he did his best in many ways, and he's been a magnificent performer. I just think it's not really his fault that the club, tells him, you're welcome to leave. And then clubs say that they want to sign him. But then due to some petty reasons, they decide, actually, we're going to muck you over and go for someone else. It happened with Manchester United last season. Now it's happened with Juventus because, I'm sorry to say this, Juve fans, but you're a cheapskate club who don't want to pay for a quality goalkeeper what he is worth. And now people are sort of portraying him as a bad guy. I don't believe that he will necessarily be the second choice this season, but if he does decide to have surgery on that finger of his, then he will be out for 3 months. So he will have to take a backseat while Suzuki and Marco Visa compete. But then, of course, Japan will be playing in the Asian Cup later on in the new year, I believe. So he will be out for a few games, and maybe Martinez can sort of come back into the picture. My ideal scenario for him would be to stay until the end of the season, and then, the club can just, offer him a free transfer and he can leave wherever he likes. Or it could very well be that if he does end up playing well and winning a trophy, a much better club can come in for him. And I actually might call this now and say it'll either be Bayern Munich, who will want to sign him as a replacement for Manuel Neuer, or he'll go to the MLS and join Inter Miami, who've got some huge goalkeeper worries of their own. And there are some comments in the chat who are talking about Suzuki's appearance He's half Japanese, half Ghanaian on his father's side, and he speaks fluent English and fluent Japanese, and so he definitely considers himself to be more Japanese than Ghanaian or American, given that he was born in the USA, as Bruce Springsteen would say. But he is quality and an excellent acquisition for the future and also for the present. So hopefully he will take to the Premiership like a duck to water and not be overruled by the situation. But, it wouldn't be a bad idea to keep Martinez for this transitional year and then let him move on so that Suzuki can feel comfortable. And Villa have 4 competitions, Champions League. They're going to want to win a trophy. As far as Ruggeri is concerned, he hasn't been capped by the Italian senior national team with Federico Di Marco and Riccardo Calafiori the preferred choices. But I would say that he actually could see himself competing with Maatsen and maybe getting some more games, because Maatsen is not really, the typical overlapping left back. He sort of likes to cut in and sort of go through the midfield and then come out and come through. While when Luca Digne was playing, he was more of the overlapper. So it could I believe that Ruggeri has been signed to be that contrasting, overlapping option that Emery would like. So whenever you have Emery has 2 quality players for one position at a club, you can see that those players compete with each other, but they bring out the best in one another. And that is really what Emery is trying to do. So I say good on him. And another piece of news is that they've also added Aaron Wan-Bissaka on loan from West Ham to the squad. So that's been done quite recently. So he will provide excellent competition and cover for Matthew Cash, who is wonderful going forward, but defensively can be an absolute liability. So as Dylan have said, they've lost a lot of big stars, but they've recouped a great deal of dosh, and they are doing whatever they can to make sure they stay above board with regard to SCR/PSR, stay ahead of the books. And, anybody who dares to say that they're a badly run club, they need to wind their necks in. They've done so much better than Arsenal have this season. And yes, I'm not ashamed to say that as an Arsenal fan. Of course, I do like Villa as well, so there's some bias, but I hope you see where I'm coming from.
Yeah, no, fair points there, Manny. As always, and we all know that you do have a little soft spot for Villa as well. But sticking with, I suppose, really your love and your soft spot, the Gunners looking for defensive reinforcements, and obviously Konza. There's been a lot of talk about Konza, and now they're also talking as well about another England player who was unfortunately sent off during the World Cup. I think is it the 6th player, only the 6th English player to be sent off at a World Cup final, something like that?
I wish I knew.
Yeah.
This is why we have Google.
Oh, there you go. I think he's the 6th, isn't he? I might be wrong. But Dylan, take this one away on what you know about.
Before we do that, I've just checked Google, and the England men's players who have all been sent off in FIFA World Cup history. Ray Wilkins was the first in 1986, Lord rest his soul. Obviously, David Beckham in 1998, and 4 years later, he got his revenge. Love that. Wayne Rooney got sent off against Portugal. We all remember that little Portuguese miscreant, who I do not want to name, and most recently, Jarell Quansah. So that's 4 for you, not 6.
4, right, okay. Thank you, Manny. Dylan, let us know what you know.
So it looks like Ezri Konsa is off to Arsenal at around £51 million. David Ornstein reporting there was an agreement met there. Then he announced the price tag, £50 million. I think this is a decent deal for Villa. Look, Ezri Konsa is a fantastic player. I've had a lot of Villa fans describe him as their Rolls Royce, someone who really leads that back line with all his experience, being 28 years of age and being at Aston Villa for so many years now. Look, he's a fantastic player. Could offer an option at right back and at right centre half as well, which is an area they wanted a bit of depth in after Saliba's injury problems. How long he's going to be out for, we're not sure. I bet Manny knows the answer to that shortly. But I'd be surprised if they pursue a deal for Jarell Quansah now, potentially. That was a bit of agent talk, like we saw, just to get Villa to come to the table and negotiate a deal for Quansah. And like they said, they've already got their right back cover in. to rival Matty Cash and Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I think that's a perfect yin and yang type of right back dynamic they've got. If they need someone overlapping, really offensive presence, then they can rely on Matty Cash, who's been at the club for years now. And now they've got Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who for me, defensively, is one of the best right backs in the league. 1v1 defending, aerial duels, winning physical battles. I think he's brilliant at. So got a really nice pairing there. We've seen today as well to go and get his replacement as a centre half. They've bid for Taylor Harwood-Bellis of Southampton, who has been really impressive in the Championship, and he looks like he's Premier League ready now. Standing at over 6 foot tall, he is definitely a great centre half, very physical and ready for the Premier League, I believe. So if they get that deal over the line, that's their centre half and right back cover sorted. Like I said, I'd be surprised if Arsenal now go in for Kwanzaa. They've got great depth in Ezri Konsa, as well as the likes of Ben White and Mosquera, who can offer a role at right centre half or at right back, while Timber goes through some injury problems as well. So overall, I think it's a smart business by Arsenal, going out and getting another top-class defender who can also be a real threat in the box as well, which we know Arteta loves to use with his defenders, like he does all his squads. So yeah, definitely Villa cashing in on a player who's in his prime and will probably, next few years will probably start to decline. That's when Arsenal probably ship him on at some point, but that's long in the future, and that's all hypothetical. So for now, what we're talking about, Ezri Konsa, soon to be an Arsenal player, I think it's a good deal for all parties involved.
Yeah, excellent. So Manny, Konsa to Arsenal, is that a signing that you would welcome?
Well, I'll tell you what. Dylan was talking about how he's a centre-back who also provides good right-back cover. He is definitely a huge improvement on the player we call Benny Blanco at Arsenal, Benjamin White. And, Benjamin White, for a little bit of trivia, as mentioned by Mr. Beasley, actually is from Poole, which isn't too far from your neck of the woods, is it?
No, that is spot on. Yeah.
And so I'm sorry to all Poole residents, but I'm not fond of Senor Blanco, and he's had a lot of hairy moments, be it at centre-back or even at right-back, when, some pacey left wingers have cooked him like an egg white frittata omelette. Never should have been recalled to the England squad, and hopefully he will never be back again under Tommy Tuchel, although you never know. Konsa is one of those defenders I've watched while he was playing for Aston Villa. He has had a few bozo moments over the years, but the description that Villa fans have of him being, a Rolls-Royce defender, I wouldn't necessarily say Rolls-Royce, but he is an outstanding defender, certainly someone who lends that solidity into the attack. And it's normally Pau Torres, his first choice, who plays alongside him. He's the one, Emery's first choice, I should say. He's the one who normally provides the passing with that sweet left foot of his. And Torres and Emery, of course, worked together at Villarreal, won the Europa League. The big issue that Villa fans have, though, is that, we at Arsenal were basically, once again, being exceptionally arrogant over this, just as we were with the Morgan Rogers issue, thinking that we could offer a cheap lowball offer, say for about 30 or 40 million, when Villa valued him at 60. So it could very well have been that we ended up accepting a compromise of paying 51 up front and then a few add-ons later on. So we ended up getting that person we wanted. But Villa fans are also quite rightly angry that this was allowed to happen barely days before the start of their season. And now there's very little time for them to get some cover. And they have been looking at some options. The Harwood-Bellis one, as Dylan has mentioned, is certainly an impressive one. But I believe the latest I've heard is that the Saints have said, no, we're not going to do business with you villains because, you are villains and we only deal with heroes because we're Saints. A little punny stuff there. And they could end up, they were also considering trying to get Tosin Adarabioyo from Chelsea, but I don't think he would fit the bill. Someone like a Fikayo Tomori, who's been in Italy for the past few years and is, of course, English born and bred, would come back and satisfy the homegrown quota quite brilliantly. Similar to how they got Tammy Abraham to come back to Aston Villa in January of last year. And it was an emotional homecoming because Abraham, as we remember, was their promotion hero when they got back to the Premier League in 2019, alongside another former Cherry and Tyrone Mings. So Villa are going to have to really work hard to ensure they get an adequate replacement. They do have a trump card in Victor Lindelof, the former Manchester United defender and, of course, current Sweden captain, who, in addition to being a very solid right-sided centre-half, also doubles as a defensive midfielder. And he was used brilliantly in that position near the end of last season by Emery as Villa secured top four and won the Europa League. And it was actually Lindelof who started the Europa League final and was brought off in favour of Amadou Onana, who, of course, himself got injured during the World Cup. And now I think Villa got his replacement in João Gomez. The big issue with Villa, though, is quite a few of the stars that they acquired over the summer have recently sustained some injuries. And, of course, there's this really talented 19-year-old named Brian Maggio who scored Villa's goal in the Super Cup final against Paris Saint-Germain. That guy is an absolute beast. And once he, gets on form and polishes his finishing, he will literally, I kid you not, be an absolute monster in the Premier League, a nightmare for defences with which defences will have to deal. So the only problem is, if they're injured right now, we don't know what sort of team Unai Emery will field when they go to the Amex Stadium on Sunday. So they're just hoping and praying that the injured players will, end up getting fit in due course of time, including Johan Manzambi, who they acquired from Freiburg not too long ago. And as far as, exactly, I did mention that it was rejected, and I found that out from the Athletic as well on their Instagram account. I think, it could very well be that the Saints want him to play a role in their campaign to get promoted back to the Premier League. But Villa are just going to have to cast their net a bit wider and look for some really good defenders. And, they should have held firm, in my opinion, and said, no, we are not selling you Ezri under any circumstances. He's our vice-captain, and we need him. So something cataclysmic as well must have happened to make Villa say, you know what, let's get this over and done with. It could be an opportunity to get some good dosh with it. But what's the point of getting the money if you can't replace it? You can't put 50 million quid in the centre of the defence alongside Pau Torres and Matty Cash, can you?
Yeah, no, absolutely true. And as you mentioned this, I thought I'd bring this one up at the time. But everybody, do stay tuned as well, because at the end of the show, Dylan will be running us through his Freebies Select 11 and honourable mentions as well. And there's some
and I will briefly mention. Sorry, Matt. I will briefly mention that the last time they signed a Southampton defender, that was the Polish international Jan Bednarek, didn't necessarily work out well for Aston Villa. So, if I were a Villa fan, I'd be saying once bitten, twice shy. We dodged a bullet. I have a soft spot for Villa, so that's what I'm saying now. Not well.
And sticking with Villa, Villa say no to Watkins' bid. So they've rejected a 38.5 million offer for Ollie Watkins. Dylan, can't be really surprised by Villa rejecting this. I mean, we all know what he is very capable of doing. But they do expect more bids for him, don't they?
Yeah, so Saudi are trying to bring some more superstars to their league, and Ollie Watkins would certainly be one of those. He's an unbelievable striker, a very apt deputy for Harry Kane at England level, and leading the line for Aston Villa. He's now their top goal scorer in the Premier League, so obviously a bit of a club legend in modern terms in that regard. I think he's an aging player. You can obviously see that, maybe losing a yard of pace here and there, but he's still a clinical finisher, great pressing. Emery absolutely loves him and fits his system perfectly. So for Villa, given how much young talent they've lost out on this summer, and to be fair, older talent in Tielemans and Digne, I can understand why they want to keep Watkins around. He's obviously such a big player on and off the pitch for him, leading that line so well. And unfortunately, I don't think, as good as Brian Maggio is, and that he showed in pre-season, he's only 17. He's not ready to lead the line for Villa yet, I don't think. So squad depth, I think Maggio is going to be great, but I'd keep Ollie Watkins around if I was Aston Villa. I think he's probably more worth more than the 38.5 that Al Hilal bid. If it got to some around the 50 million mark, that is a lot of money for a player of Watkins' age. So I would probably be tempted if I was Villa. But like you say, the time is dwindling to try and get a replacement. They'll be pushed to try and get a deal for a centre-half over the line. If that is Harwood Bellis, maybe. If not, the deadline day is only, 12 days away now, 13 days away, not, just under 2 weeks, not long away now. So If I was Villa, I'd certainly want to keep hold of Ollie Watkins, and nor do I think he's the type of character that will force a move away from the club, despite how much money Saudi are probably offering him, which we know will be absolutely ludicrous in comparison to a Premier League wage. So for Villa, I understand why they're keeping him, and if I did see him pulling on an Al Hilal jersey this season, I'd be surprised to say the least.
Manny, what's your views on this one?
Couldn't agree more with everything that Dylan has said. And, you know, for a Saudi club to not even offer 40 million quid for Ollie Watkins, I mean, Villa are right to say, you know, you lot are taking the mickey. We're not going to accept that low ball and offer. There is, of course, that concern about his age, so to speak. But as long as he can keep scoring goals, that's not going to be a problem. The big issue last season, though, and I do remember being witness to that, is that Watkins has these runs where he, you know, to put it in the much often coined phrase, can't hit a barn door, so to speak. I use a more graphic phrase at times, slightly more graphic, but I'm not going to use it now because I'm always a more decent person that way. But he has some periods where, you know, he can't hit the target, and then all of a sudden, around about the middle or near the end of the season, he finds his scoring boots, and then, you know, Bob's your uncle. So it could very well be that Emery wants him to stay because he is a very big link between the Dean Smith era and the current era now. And he is, of course, very much a club legend. And he's not the type of person who'd want to even force a move away after everything that's, you know, sort of happened. The big issue, though, is that he will also need another striker with whom to compete. I know I mentioned they re-signed Tammy Abraham in January of this year, last season, of course. But unless Abraham is able to hit the ground running, I don't know if he can compete. And of course, Brian Maggio, as Dylan mentioned, is 17. Not necessarily ready to lead the line, but yeah, you never know. He could make an appearance as a super sub once he comes on. You know, once he's fit, he can come on and you know, nick a late goal, and everything could be quite hunky dory, I would say, shipshape in Bristol fashion. So Emery might have a role for him, but Watkins will be needed as that senior figure who will provide leadership, and especially since Villa have now lost their vice captain. It's now John McGinn, Ollie Watkins, and Tyrone Mings from the the Smith era, and of course the likes of Emi Martinez, Ross Barkley, and one or two others who still provide that experience and leadership for what's going to be a much younger Villa team going forward. But if a better offer comes in, I wouldn't necessarily say that Villa shouldn't take it, but Villa shouldn't even consider, you know, an offer for Ollie unless they can get a really good replacement. And there was talk about trying to get Nicholas Jackson from Chelsea, because Jackson, of course, worked with Emery for Villarreal. But they've already done a lot of business with Chelsea, having sold Morgan Rogers and gotten Garnacho on loan, as mentioned in the chat. That any more business would have, you know, raised more than a few eyebrows to put it mildly. So Villa are going to have to do some real, handstand work, some acrobatics, you should say, to try to make sure that everything is, you know, dealt with. But I've been really impressed, as I've said, with the way they've managed to raise good funds and get some good signings through the window. And, I just know that with Emery and his team working around the clock, they will find a way. But if they can keep Watkins this season, then they would be best advised to do so. And the next season, he, Martinez, and a few other Smith-era players can be told that they can find new employers. As long as they keep John McGinn, jobs are good.
Well, there we go. There we go. Let's see what happens. Let's see if they can keep hold of Watkins. I'm sure they will. And he is very important to Villa's project. Moving away from the Premier League. So no go for Alvarez. Simone has confirmed that the player will remain with Atletico Madrid, despite the interest from Barcelona, Dylan.
Yeah, so we mentioned sagas earlier, right, about Rodri. It's been another one that has dragged on, and now, seems to be at a bit of dead end. Atletico Madrid have dug their heels in and said, we don't want to let Alvarez go, especially to a big rival like Barcelona, despite how much money they were willing to offer. So, You see him there in that is his official squad picture for the year, looking so pleased to be continuing to play his football in Madrid, obviously. But for Barcelona, they need to get some attacking reinforcements, in my opinion. Obviously, Marcus Rashford is gone. They've brought Anthony Gordon and Karim Adeyemi to the club, but I still feel like, especially after Ferran Torres has gone to PSG, they're still lacking an out-and-out striker, someone they can have in central areas to really put away all the chances that the likes of Yamal, Gordon, Rafinha, Adeyemi will provide for them. So for now, I think Barcelona will have to go and look elsewhere, and Julian Alvarez will remain an Atletico Madrid player. We saw earlier in the window there was this wild rumour going around that Real Madrid did bid for him after their biggest rivals, arguably, their city rivals at the very least, their best player, in my opinion, and that was all taken. The bid was rejected immediately before Barcelona had even put any bids in themselves. So that was a crazy start to this saga. And now, for now, like I said, it seems to be over. So I think Alvarez will remain at Atletico Madrid, at least for this season. And then I think next year he will try once again to kick up a fuss, get that move away, that big money move, potentially back to the Premier League. Could see a team like Liverpool, Arsenal, maybe even Manchester City again if they want to strike up a new partnership between him and Haaland once again. Or it may be even Chelsea. We know how much they love to splurge on players, even if they don't necessarily need them. So I think Alvarez, for now, will remain an Atletico Madrid player, a very talented player, no doubt. But like I said, he won't be a Barcelona player this season.
Yeah. Manny, is this correct? Arsenal were after him as well?
Yes, this is. Our good friend Mr. B is spot on, buzzing as always. And we were, considering him as a possible, addition to our attack, especially with some doubts over Victor Gyökeres. And why there should be doubts over Gyökeres, I don't know, because he's found the net on a regular basis, and his goals have played a big part in us winning the league last season. But for some fans who seem to be so much more wedded to Arteta and his philosophy than what's good for the club, they don't seem to rate Victor Gyökeres very highly. And so someone like Alvarez would be a good acquisition. The problem is Alvarez didn't exactly do himself justice during the World Cup when he was being played as a striker. And it was really Lautaro Martinez who was, doing more of the business, coming off the bench as a super sub and then scoring goals. I think Alvarez did get one or two, but it was a poor tournament by his standards. And, he certainly didn't contribute very much in the final either, as Argentina ended up, falling just short. So Alvarez will have a point to prove. And it could very well be that Simeone wants him to, prove himself more at Atletico, have one more season with the club, and then maybe he can go at the end of the season. I think Alvarez also now needs to be told that his form hasn't been up to scratch, and he needs to improve. And let's not forget, Diego Simeone, in addition to being the manager of Atletico, is a proud Argentinian, former international, of course, and former captain who earned over 100 caps. And he was the bloke who was responsible for Bex getting sent off. We must never forget that. And I'm glad we got our revenge against him 4 years later. I think Diego wants him to keep his focus on his football and just make sure that he gets himself back on track and back to the form which made him so sought after. And we all know how wonderful he was for Argentina in the previous World Cup in Qatar. But, players go through lean spells where their form isn't really that good and they aren't able to be as, influential or as pivotal as you want them to be. So Simeone wants him to get back to that form. And then maybe Atletico can look to letting him go. And I think Alvarez will probably be made to realise that his performances have not really been up to par for club and country. So it could very well be, as Mr. B's also said, that we might go for Osimhen, but we tried going for Vinicius Jr. That did not go well. Trying to go for Osimhen. Lord help us.
Yeah, we will. We'll see if that one happens as well, Manny, between now and deadline day. But Braithwaite, I'm assuming you're meaning the Everton defender Braithwaite.
I'd like to interject. I don't think he is. I think he's referring to, if we're talking about Barcelona strikers, their former Danish one, Martin Braithwaite.
Oh, yeah.
See, I assume the same. When I see Braithwaite, I think of Jared, but I think because we were talking about Barcelona, I think he means the Braithwaite, former Middlesbrough striker as well, really forgettable stint there, and then did go on loan there around 2020. I mean, you can throw this one to him, Matt. I don't even want to mention that type of rumour.
Manny, I don't think they can interest you in Liam Delap, can they?
No. If I never see another former Chelsea player at Arsenal again, it will be too soon.
Just wait until you sign Pedro Neto.
I wouldn't necessarily mind him, but you've got to understand, Dylan, mate, there's a stigma. So Chelsea can offer us, a really good starlet. Arteta will still be interested in him, don't get me wrong. I mean, if he looks at Chelsea rejects the way he would look at a dish of paella. Go figure.
Well, there we go. Some more breaking news this evening, which kind of brings Liverpool into play a little bit for this show, Dylan. But they have now had a bid rejected for Minte. Do you think this is something that they go back in for? Do you think they go in for a different kind of bid, or do you think this is just now going to finish and be it, no more?
Yeah, potentially. I think it's a really intriguing bit of business we're trying to conduct here, Matt, to be honest. If I had to put my money somewhere, I expect this is just a bit of agent talk to try and accelerate the Barcola deal, to let PSG know, your lads, Barcola and Mboy, they're not the only players on our radar, and if we want to go and get another winger and put our chips elsewhere, we can. However, Minter, I do like the player. I like the profile, very pacey, great with the ball at his feet, willing to take a man on. For me, I think he struggles with end product. I think sometimes he can get to the final third and struggle to make that final killer pass, which prevented him really, hitting those upper echelons of goal involvements last season. We went in with a bid of around £50 million, I believe. Brighton don't want to sell at that point. I think they're very smart when they do their business. And they know that we are out. Not only are we out for a right winger, but we've got the money to spend. They would have known that we put in a bid around the 110 million mark for Barcola. They'll expect us to pay a bit more, push it up, if we're really serious about this interest. I'm not sure about signing Minter now was the right time. If we'd gone and got this done at the end of May, start of June time, I think this would have been brilliant. Obviously, he's had a full pre-season at Brighton after Gambia did not go to the World Cup. So we could have got this done a lot more early in the window, and I'd have been a lot more optimistic about him. Since that, he's had pre-season at Brighton, picked up an injury, had to have a little minor surgery, so he's going to be out for roughly until the end of September, start of October. May not be fit to start any games until November, so it's a player that we don't really need in terms of fitness and availability now. But like I said, if I had to put my chips somewhere, I expect this is just a bid that we're floating out there to remind PSG the wingers that you have that we are clearly interested in aren't our only option. So if that means we get to accelerate a deal for Barcola or Mbaye or both, I think that's even better. I prefer them over Minter personally. But if we were to go in some point, maybe before the end of this week or early next week, and say, okay, here's 60, maybe that would turn their heads a little bit more. But Brighton are obviously a lot smarter than that. So to get there, to really bring them to the table and get them serious, it would have to be a lot of money. So like I said, I really would prefer, and I think we will, go for Barcola and Mbaye, the PSG duo. But like I said, who knows what could happen if Brighton are serious about getting him out the door.
Okay, and Manny, just to ask you this one. He's not worth 50 million. Would you agree?
A bit harsh, but it's quite obvious that Brighton have rejected this bid for a reason. They clearly, have had a huge clear out in their own squad. And Steve and I were talking about this on his stream. Shout out to the Mr. B's Hyper Football chat, of course. And Minte is clearly viewed by Hudson as someone important to the team's plans going forward, especially since they were actually in action tonight in the Conference League playoffs. And I can tell you how they fared. It's a goalless draw between them against Tromsø and the Seagulls. So that was the first leg, of course, played almost 200 miles north of the Arctic Circle. A little bit like a certain Bodo Glimt, who are favourites to return to the Champions League. So the second leg, of course, being played at the Amex, that's going to be exceptionally important, and Minter will be key for them. So It's a no-brainer. There's no way that Brighton can afford to sell more of their key players and risk leaving their squad light this season, because they're also, for what it's worth, playing in 4 competitions this season. I know the Conference League may not be, everyone's cup of tea, pun intended, it is a cup, but it is a European trophy, and people can tell you that it is nice to have in their collection. I mean, Declan Rice can swear by how good it is. He won it with West Ham, and that's the closest he's been to touching European silverware, especially after last season's debacle in Budapest, where we limited ourselves to 25% possession and thought that we could scam a win against Paris Saint-Germain. The Frenchman had other ideas, and thankfully so. So, no, I don't see Minter going anywhere. He's far too important.
Yeah, thank you, Manny. Hello to Doug. Hope you're well, buddy. Obviously, he's agreed in this comment here with the points that have been made, with him being injured until October, until he's fit. Possibly could be November before he's fully fit to play. So to avoid at all costs. Now, Doug joined me this week for the tier list, which is now out on the channel. Do check it out. I think a couple of comments pleased Dylan pretty immensely during that one about Liverpool. But we've predicted where all 20 teams will finish. I think Mr. B would be a little bit happier with where I've placed Brentford this time. And yeah, do check that out now. It's on the channel. If you agree with us, disagree with us, let us know in the comments. But yeah, Doug joined us for that earlier on this week, and also check out his channel as well. He's got an excellent channel, Doug. So if you haven't already, do check his channel out as well. Let's have a quick move on. We've discussed this one briefly, and that looks like that's all done. And Manchester United, they're said to be lining up a new contract for Fernandes after Galatasaray bid for him. And obviously that was rejected, as Bruno wants to say. So they're lining up a new contract for him. And finally, guys, this is quite an interesting one to get your points on. So City looking to pay £85 million for an 18-year-old who impressed during the World Cup. Dylan, what's the news that you've got on this one?
So yeah, Ayoub Bouwadi, a player formerly interested by Arsenal, I believe in January they registered interest in him around 60-70 million. Lille rejected it straight flat out. I believe that was the Athletic reporting on that one. A little foggy over the payment that maybe, or the bid that got made in the end, but there was firm interest from Arsenal and Paris Saint-Germain. Obviously, they love to bring talents through that they found in France themselves, the likes of Bradley Barcola, Desiree Doué, other profiles like that at the club that have developed in Ligue 1, proven themselves, and then pushed on to further things in at Paris Saint-Germain. But it looks like he's set to come to the Premier League and play for Manchester City as they continue to rebuild their midfield. Rodri's out, and for me, they've already got that replacement sorted, at least for the long term, in Elliot Anderson. And now Tijani Reinders, as we discussed last week, has gone to Saudi Arabia with Al Qadisa. And the next midfielder in seems to be Bouwadi. He was excellent for Morocco at the World Cup, really in contention for that young player of the tournament. And I think if they weren't so heavily influenced perhaps by the team who win it in the end, I think he could have easily took home the award. So now obviously Manchester City have their heads turned and seem like this deal will eventually get done. If not this week, then probably next week ahead of the transfer deadline day. £85 million, it's a lot of money, especially for a player of this age. But this is money that Manchester City have. Look at the team we're dealing with here. Obviously, they have the money to deal with it, especially after just selling Reinders for around 50-55 million. So for City, they've got a real starlet on their hands. I'm really excited to see him in the Premier League, even if he's playing for a big rival like Man City. And if he's able to live up to the potential and the hype he has, or even match his performance levels from Lille in League 1, there we go, last year, I think that's going to be a really nice addition to the Premier League and a player Enzo Maresca will absolutely love to deal with.
Excellent. Manny, your thoughts on this one?
Can't really say much more. And as was mentioned by Dylan, we were interested in him. Certainly a very young, up-and-coming central midfielder who will add a great deal. steel to any defence, and I mean any midfield, I should say. And it's he's going for 85 million quid, so it's just it's sort of a reminder that really only those clubs that can afford to spend that much money can really, go in for him. I mean, he's 18 years old, so again, he is of course an established international, so I don't think Maresca will have any problems, putting him into the cauldron, as it were, of the Premiership. And he will definitely add a great deal to Morocco and their fight for, for the Champions League as well, because they are, of course, in the competition, still hoping to try and do better than they did last season when they didn't even make the knockout stages. So they're going to have to really fight hard this season and try and have some sort of improvement. But, it's a good acquisition and really something that City will need at the moment, especially with all the flux that's been going on. And, they haven't exactly fired on all cylinders during pre-season, and during the Community Shield, they were ripped to shreds by Arsenal, of course. So there are a lot of problems and a lot of carryovers from the end of the Guardiola era. And selling Rodri, of course, is a reminder that, they've got to move on. But at least they've got a replacement who is proven quality now and an acquisition for the future. What's not to like?
Excellent. Well, that rounds up this week's transfer news. And as a little bit of an extra special feature this week, I gave Dylan the task of creating a Freebies Select 11. So players that are completely free and unattached that could be signed for next to nothing, apart from obviously a signing on fee. So Dylan, we're going to bring up your selection of, and this is correct, main event time, of your picks for each position. You've done from goalkeeper right through to striker, and we'll start with your first pick, which is somebody all Bournemouth fans will be very familiar with. Manny will be very familiar with as well. And that's Neto, who's currently on a free, former Bournemouth captain.
Of course, yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that his top behind you as well, Matt?
There it is.
There it is. What a great strategic plaything of that one, I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely. And a lovely kit as well on a sidetrack. But yeah, let's start off in goal with Neto, like you say, a player that lots of people will be familiar with, spend lots of time in La Liga with the likes of Barcelona and Valencia. He's got Serie A experience as well with Juventus and lots of Premier League experience with the likes of Arsenal and Bournemouth. Obviously, was at Bournemouth, re-established himself, and his career was excellent for him, became Bournemouth captain, then decided to take a bit of a step up, perhaps, with all due respect to Bournemouth, to go and be the Arsenal number 2. And then in years previous, after leaving the Premier League, he spent last season back in his home nation of Brazil with Botafogo. However, he is now a free agent. He would offer some excellent experience, and I imagine there's still a really safe pair of hands there in Neto. So perhaps if a team was after an experienced number 2, a really great leader in their dressing room, or perhaps even a lower-end team who are looking for an established number 1, I think Neto has still got a lot to offer. We know goalkeepers can go for a lot longer in their careers than outfield players can, and I'm sure Neto is yet to be done in his playing career. So in goal, it's Neto.
Excellent. And there's a comment here from Harry, just been reported Wolves are on the verge of selling Bentley and that he'd love Neto at Wolves in a heartbeat. I think Wolves have got some pretty good goalkeepers, haven't they? Haven't they got Sam Johnston as well?
Jose Sarr, Sam Johnston.
They
were, of course, in the squad last season when Wolves got relegated. I think, Sarr, of course, being a Portuguese international, might want to, move to a better club in search of first-team football. But if Bentley gets sold, then Sarr might be back in the first-team picture. And it could very well be Johnston that might end up, being on his way. So we don't know. But if Bentley ends up leaving, then it could be quite interesting. I do remember Neto very well. I think, at times Arteta should have given him an opportunity to play. I remember the FA Cup third-round match between Arsenal and Manchester United, where David Raya, I have to say this, disgraced himself in the penalty shootout. That was a type of game where, Neto should have been given a chance to play, to sort of, a chance to prove his worth, and he wasn't given that chance. And, he wouldn't have done worse, I have to say. And he could be a reliable number 2. I don't know if age is on his side at the moment. But I do remember Nato well, and he certainly was a fine player for Bournemouth until, when things took their course. But, Bournemouth fans are still not going to forget him, and for good reason too.
Absolutely. And let's take a look at the pick for left back. Again, another player that you know well, Manny, and I'm sure you'll give some points of views in a second. But Zinchenko, then, why does he make your pick? Obviously, we know he's a freebie, but I'm sure there's probably somebody else you could have put in that role.
Yeah, there are some more criteria to it. I think obviously left back is such a sought after position, as it's not, left-footed players are obviously more common than right. So getting a competent fullback in, I think, is very important to a lot of teams. And I think Zinchenko, with the amount of Premier League experience he has, maybe he's got some fitness issues surrounding him, but we're talking about a player with over 150 Premier League appearances, a Premier League champion as well with Manchester City. He is definitely a player with still a lot to offer. Unfortunately, like I said, injury problems have burdened the Ukrainian defender. He's tried a loan move at Nottingham Forest. Unfortunately, got minimal game time there. Oh, sorry. You might have heard the dog there having a go. But he went to Ajax in January. And unfortunately, he didn't get a lot of game time there, only making 2 appearances. So for now, he's without a club. But like I said, some of the newer Premier League teams, perhaps Hull, Coventry, Ipswich, if they can afford his wages, I think his ability on the pitch as well as his experience would be really good for him. So Zinchenko for now without a club, but I do think he could come back to the Premier League with a lower end team if the opportunity arose for him.
And just who's brought that one up? Sorry.
That was me, and just to sort of prepare yourself for what I'd like to say on him, wouldn't touch him with a barge pole. His best days, of course, were at Manchester City, and he's one of those players, who really is a lot more comfortable as a central midfielder playing in the double pivot, but is often used as a left back to sort of cut in and be that inverted left back who doesn't overlap, provides control in the midfield. But whenever he played, he left us so weak defensively on that left side that more often than not, we'd end up suffering. And no clearer case for my argument would be made than when we lost to Aston Villa 2-0 in 2023-24. Both of those goals were scored by Leon Bailey and Ollie Watkins because there was nobody covering that vacant left-sided area at the back. And Zinchenko was going walkabout. And when Ollie Watkins burst through to score, it was Emile Smith-Rowe that was doing defensive duty while Zinchenko was gallivanting in the midfield. So if he's signed as a midfielder by any club, not as a left back, then he'd do a good job. I know he does play left back for the Ukraine, but he really is one of those players, a little bit like Miles Lewis-Skelly, who is more comfortable playing in the midfield and not in the defence. So, no, I think his days at left back are over. He just doesn't have the positional defensive awareness anymore. Put him in the midfield where he can, he does have a good shot on him. He is quite technical. Put him in the midfield and he'll be happy as a clown. But left back, no chance.
Well, before we look at the centre backs, not that one, sorry, but I clicked the wrong one. Where are we? There we go. Tom, he's a free agent. If anyone wants him to play for their club, Tom, stay tuned. See if you make a Dylan's 11. Let's move on to the centre backs then, and someone very famous in Sergio Ramos. Obviously, even at his age, still thinks he has something to give. And for the right club, he could probably really make a difference and share out his experience, Dylan. So I'll let you take it away on this one.
Yeah, in fairness, I think I'm kind of surprised that he hasn't called time on his playing career, especially with so many players of the same generation for him doing the same. Obviously, we know Gerard Piqué, Carlos Puyol, midfielders like Andres Iniesta, Cesc Fabregas. I could go on and on about those Spain teams from 15 years ago, and a lot of them have called time on their careers. But no, Sergio Ramos is insistent. He's not done yet at the age of, I believe, 39, so knocking on the door of 40 and still willing to play. Obviously, We all know Sergio Ramos is absolute legend of the game, legend of Real Madrid, with over 850 career appearances across the numerous clubs he's represented. Most recently, Mexican club Monterrey, signed for them in February last year and left them in December last year, but continues to train throughout most of 2026 to continue to keep his fitness up if a club come knocking. We know that he's going to be demanding high wages, and we know his agent fees and his signing on fees would be a lot, so this would be hard from a free transfer. But for me, I still think he could do a really good job for a team, perhaps in MLS, maybe with the pace of the league, all due respect to them. But I think in Italy, potentially, he could still offer someone potentially in the Champions League or a team like AC Milan or something along those lines, or maybe in Saudi Arabia. You know, how many big name players have we seen end up in either the MLS or in Saudi? It seems to be the go-to route. So Sergio Ramos still insists he's got a lot left in the tank. And I think if he was to go to another club, especially someone as left field like Monterrey, how many people would have expected him to play in the Mexican league during the latter stages of his career? Probably not a lot of people. But Sergio Ramos still kicking about and still able to offer a lot to a club if they were to go for him.
Yeah, and Tom here reckons that him and Ramos would be unstoppable at the back. So maybe you should give Kidderminster a call. See if you both can get a game for them. Anyway, Manny, legend of the game, probably still very, very fit, and could do a job still. Manny? Okay, we'll move on.
Yes, I'm muted. I do apologise. So, I've had a lot going through my mind. Let me say this: he can go to Saudi and enjoy the big pay packet, and just retire over there effectively. And he is actually 40 years old. His birthday was on the 30th of March this year, so he is 40. And I think the only leagues that would take him at this point are, Saudi. I'm not even sure that there'd be an MLS club that would want to go in for him, because they are trying to market themselves as a more serious league, and you've got to still be at the top of your game to be able to contribute. Now, he did score a few goals in Mexico with Monterrey, and of course another player who and played in Mexico, a certain Aaron Ramsey, former Cardiff City and Arsenal midfielder, who was there briefly, enjoyed his stint, but sadly had to leave under tragic personal circumstances. And if he's no longer playing in Mexico, I'm not too sure that there's any club in South America that may want to go for him. That could also be a good pace for him, but then would he necessarily enjoy the lifestyle? It could very well be that Saudi might be an option. If he could join the South American team and maybe play in the Copa Libertadores, that would be an interesting challenge for him if any club would like to take a punt on him. But I think his top level days are done and dusted. Simple as that. If he wants to join and get any club to play, he'll have to, cast his net even wider than he'd expect.
Okay, there we go. That's Manny's thoughts on that one. Before we look at the next centre-back, Paul from Oz is in the chat. Hello, Paul. Now, Paul is my co-host on Saturday mornings with our show On the Sidelines, which returns this Saturday morning at 8 a.m. with our season preview show, which is going to be a bumper show. We're going to have contributions from loads of different people, different channels, as well as the two gentlemen with me tonight, and also Mr. B in the chat. So there's going to be a lot of contributions from everybody. So do join myself and Paul, if you can, on Saturday morning for the On the Sidelines Premier League preview 26-27. So, but good to see you in the chat, Paul. And Reese, welcome Ray, but his name's Paul, believe it or not. But it's yes. Let's have a look at the next centre-back choice then. And Axel, who I thought was absolutely fantastic during the World Cup. And yes, I'm surprised someone hasn't actually signed him up yet, Dylan.
Yeah, me too. Unfortunately, it's not Tom joining Sergio Ramos in this fantasy team. It is Axel Tuanzebe. Yeah, like you said, he was really great during the World Cup, and I thought definitely would have been snapped up by someone as of yet, but not quite deal over the line. He started at Manchester United, coming through their academy, and was deemed as a wonder kid early on in his career. Failed to find a real permanent home in English football, floating around the likes of Stoke, Ipswich. You see him in that team there with Burnley, but he's been really heavily linked with Hull City. I wouldn't be surprised to see him end up there or another team who are trying to compete in the Premier League and could put him on a 2 to 3 year contract. And if they do dip back down, can help them go straight back up. I think that's kind of the player that we are talking about with Tuanzebe, someone who's maybe not ultimately Premier League quality, but someone who can dip between those two levels. So for me, I think Tuanzebe is a terrific player, and if he comes back to the Premier League, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised.
Yeah, no, I agree with your comments there totally. I think you made a very good point there. Manny, your views on this one?
Interestingly enough, this chap Tuanzebe has had not one, not two, but 3 loan spells at Aston Villa, and also played under Dean Smith as they were promoted to the Premier League. So if he's on a free, I'd be saying to Unai Emery, snap him up. The only problem is, if you take a look at the clubs where he started his career and how he's been since, Stoke City, Ipswich Town, and Burnley. I think at club level, that's pretty much where his level kind of is. It's sad to say this, but he can certainly be a terrific defender, and World Cup performances can definitely put him out there in the shop window. I just don't know if any top club would be eager to make the move for him. But it could very well be that some clubs like a Hull City or any lower placed Premier League clubs could be in for him. Maybe even the Championship club could decide to go for him to help them with their promotion bid. So, that World Cup will have given him a great deal of confidence, starring for Congo as he did. And, I'm surprised that more and more clubs aren't really in for him. If Aston Villa were to bring him back, that would be true sensational, but I'm not too sure that Unai Emery would want to have another Dean Smith player coming back to the team. He's already brought back Tammy Abraham, and he's trying to move on with a newer, younger team, so Tuanzebe would be an option. But if Hull City can get him, then good for them.
Excellent. Well, a real legend at right back. So take it away, Dylan.
Yeah, completing our defence in this 3B11, it is Danny Carvajal, obviously, a very well-known friend of Sergio Ramos, who knows as well, just like him, that his career is not done yet. He left this summer after an ACL injury last year. It was expected that he would be rivaling Trent Alexander-Arnold upon his arrival at Real Madrid, but unfortunately some serious injury issues prevented him from doing so. So he has left Real Madrid after 450 appearances with the club. He has been training at La Rosa, ROZA to be clear, Spain's training centre as well, if you don't know, if you don't speak Spanish, which I imagine a lot of us don't. So still training and is still trying to prepare for the next season. He spent a little bit of time in Germany at Bayer Leverkusen. Maybe he feels like his time isn't done there and he'd like to have another go there. Or I imagine a lot of teams in Spain, if he is fit, would want to go in for him. Perhaps he'd like to remain in Madrid, sign for a team like Rayo Vallecano or Getafe, who would really appreciate his experience. So for now, Danny Carvajal says his career isn't done like Ramos. I'd be surprised to see him go somewhere like Saudi Arabia or an MLS just yet. I think he's still got a little bit to offer in a decent European league. But if he was to end up there, given his age and his fitness, it wouldn't be overly surprising. Completing the defence in at right back, Danny Carvajal.
Okay. Manny, obviously a legend of the game, as we've just mentioned there. What kind of club do you think he would suit?
I don't know if I can see him playing for another club in Spain. And it's more often than not the case that most of the biggest legends at the likes of Real Madrid and Barcelona decide that they can't, face the prospect of playing at another Spanish club, and they end up moving to foreign leagues. I believe when Pep Guardiola ended his time with Barcelona as a player, he went to Italy to join Brescia. and certainly Raul Gonzalez actually made the move to Germany to join Schalke, where he had 2 magnificent years under Felix Magath and helped Schalke win the German Cup, the DFB Pokal, as they call it, and also sensationally reached the semi-finals of the Champions League. And people still remember him very fondly at the club, and they've been through tough times since, although they have been promoted back to the Bundesliga recently. So it was interesting to hear Dylan talking about how he had a stint at Bayer Leverkusen early on. It could very well be that the Bundesliga might be the league for him because, he's now been frozen out of the Spain setup for good, given his injury problems. He wasn't picked for the World Cup. And I do believe that Pedro Porro and a few others have sort of nailed that right back spot for good. So I don't see Luis de la Fuente recalling him. Although, things can happen, crazy things can happen. But when you leave Real Madrid and you still feel as though you want to give it your best in a different league, a more serious league, and you want to experience some new sensations, as Raul said, it could very well be that a move to Germany or France would be the best thing for him, or maybe even Italy, elsewhere in Europe. Moving to Saudi would literally be an admission that, your career as good as over and you just want a payday. And I'm not necessarily against that, but he's 34 years old. He could still have, 2 or 3 good years in the game as a fullback. So I think he might be advised to do what Raul did, have 2 years in a European league, a good quality European league, and then make the move to Saudi or the Middle East or anywhere else to sort of wind his career down. So Bayer Leverkusen would be a good call if they would love to have him back, or maybe elsewhere in Germany. We'll see how that pans out.
Okay, cool. Well, let's dive into the midfield and starting with the central defensive midfield, I suppose, in Fabinho, Dylan. Now, to be honest, I forgot this guy was still playing.
Yeah, easy to forget, to be fair. He had a really rough last season in the Premier League with Liverpool. Trust me, I had to watch him throughout all of it. It was abysmal, and somehow we managed to get him off to Saudi for a really decent fee in the end. I think around 35-40 million. So he's going to play at the base of this fantasy midfield. He made over 210 appearances for Liverpool. He won almost everything there is to win with them. Premier League, Champions League, FA Cup, League Cup, Community Shield, Club World Cup, you name it, he won under Jurgen Klopp. Left for Al-Ittihad in Saudi. He's now departed them after 3 years with the squad, which to me is crazy. Only feels like maybe last year that we sold him. Now he's had 3 years with them and he's still ready to go. So would he come back to the Premier League? No, I don't think so. I wouldn't be surprised to see him ending up in a league, perhaps joining Mo Salah in the Turkish Super League, perhaps going over to MLS, or maybe another Saudi side while the Brazilian contingent is still strong out there with the likes of Roberto Firmino, Felipe Coutinho, Malcolm, other Brazilian players like that. So for Fabinho, I'd be surprised to see him going back to Europe. But for now, he's on the free agent market. And I'd wonder if maybe some teams around France, where he's played previously, or in Spain after his short stint at Real Madrid, would be tempted just to see if they could afford his wages and bring his experience into their squad.
There we go. Cool. Do you see a similar path for him now at this stage of his career, Manny?
Well, I mean, if he's left the Saudi league, it's going to be difficult to see him, joining a top league once again. I believe he is Brazilian, so maybe a return to Brazil would be the best thing for him. Maybe join a club in the Brazilian league that could compete for the Copa Libertadores and other, pieces of silverware. And of course, if you take a look at his career, he was with Fluminense and Rio Ave back in Brazil without, actually Fluminense was back in Brazil, but Rio Ave is in Portugal. I think a move back to Brazil might be the best thing for him. And, it's like, it might be really the best sort of thing for him if his career is winding down. I don't see him being called up for Brazil anymore. He's currently 32, so you would think that he would still have some years ahead of him. I just think the years that he would have spent in Saudi would have dulled his ambition a little bit, because he's spent what should be the prime years of his career there, earned a great deal of dosh. But which league now would really be willing to take a punt on him if his, ambition might have dimmed a little bit? Going back to Brazil, winding down his career, that would be really the best thing to do. So if not at Fluminense, maybe another Brazilian club that could be in for him. Maybe Flamengo. I mean, they brought in Jorginho from Arsenal, and he's literally having the time of his life back in his home country. I know he played for Italy, but he is Brazilian by birth. So back to Brazil for Fabinho, I guess.
Fair point. Fair point. Let's look at the second midfield choice. And, of course, someone who's very experienced. I believe this guy won the Bundesliga 7 times. I think he won a Champions League. Very, very experienced, Dylan.
Yeah, so I've gone to build the midfield. I've kind of gone from an out-and-out DM, a number 8 box-to-box kind of midfielder, and a more forward midfielder. So for now, we've got Leon Goretzka in the team. He spent 8 years at Bayern Munich, and you got it right, Matt. In 8 of those years, 7 Bundesliga titles, played a really important role in that team that won the Champions League in 2020, and 3 DFB Pokals, which is the equivalent of the FA Cup in Germany. So he's really decorated. He's had a really tough time at Bayern in the past couple of years, and lots of midfielders come and go from there. For example, João Paulinho went over there, had a bit of a tough time. We've seen some midfielders trying to embed in, which has meant Leon Goretzka has continued to play an important role for Bayern Munich after they've made some pretty poor midfield signings. But for now, he has left the club. The club have called time on his career. With them, whether he remains in Germany, I could definitely see that happening. I still think this is a player got a lot to offer. Perhaps not a team around the Champions League like Dortmund, Leipzig or Leverkusen, but a team maybe lower down. Schalke are back in the league. That's the team that he came through with. Perhaps he could go back there. I think that'd be a very romantic kind of move to make. There has been a lot of heavy interest from teams in the MLS. We've seen lots of German players going there in recent years, like Thomas Muller and Bastian Schweinsteiger. And there's been interest from Turkey, namely Besiktas, who have already dipped into the free agent market this summer by signing Dusan Vlahovic after he left Juventus. Perhaps I want to do that again and go and get Goretzka, who would still certainly have a lot to offer for them. So Goretzka, I don't think he's anywhere near done at the top level yet. I think well, let me rephrase. The top level, he wouldn't go to a team like Bayern Munich. But at a decent level around the Bundesliga, I think he can certainly still thrive. So I'd be interested to see where he ends up. Hopefully he has a destination come September.
Okay, just very quickly, if Sterling is in this team, we riot. You'll have to stay tuned to find out. Wish Leon Bailey was in this team and not at Villa. Obviously, mustn't rate Leon Bailey then.
Where the hate for Leon Bailey. Wow.
Maddie, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, well, obviously there's a reason why our friend doesn't rate Leon Bailey. He was wonderful a few seasons ago, but that's pretty much been and gone. We're supposed to move to Hull City, but that fell through. I think they want to get rid of him because I think there's no real role for him to play. Once they get a new right winger, Bailey's gone. As far as this Leon Goretzka, he's 31 years old, and as Dylan has said, he's nowhere near done. So why not try your luck in the Premiership, my friend? Come over to England, join a mid-table-ish, a middling club that might have ambitions of trying to, do a little bit higher. If Granit Xhaka had left Sunderland to go to Chelsea, I think Sunderland would have been all over him because he would have been perfect for their European campaign. And, I get Dylan's point where he says that maybe a move to another club in Germany, maybe move back to Schalke would be, romantic. But, if he's only 31 and still, for what it's worth, expected to play a big part in the German team, I mean, even with Nagelsmann sacked, I don't think Jurgen Klopp's going to want to, do away with his services. And once he gets a club and starts playing regularly, there's no way he can't not continue to be in the German national team picture. So he's got to be a little bit more ambitious and try and go for, a different league. Maybe not necessarily a big club because I'm sure they're all stocked to the brim with central defensive midfielders. But there will be clubs out there that will definitely want his services. Just go to another league in Europe. I think once you've played for Bayern Munich, joining another German club might be as emotional as it might be, a bit of a step down. Go to a different league, experience some new sensations, give yourself the chance of getting more out of yourself with the time that you've got left. And, that's the way I believe it should go. So, Leon, time for you to leave Germany and seek pastures new. Talk to Harry Kane about a possible Premiership vacancy, and you're all set.
Yeah, interesting point. Interesting point with the whole mid-table Premier League club and see what he can do. But yeah, like you say, at the age of 31, he does still have a lot to give. Here's one from the past for you, Manny. But Dylan, take it away on this one.
Yeah, Dani Ceballos completes the midfield and he departs Real Madrid after 9 years at the club. Joined them in 2016, left them obviously this year, and had a small stint with Arsenal, as seen in the picture, between 2019 and 2021, I believe, where he didn't exactly light up the Premier League per se. But he's left Real Madrid with lots of experience. There's lots of interest from Italy, the likes of Juventus and Napoli have been after him. Surprisingly got some links to the Premier League, despite how poor he was at Arsenal, in my opinion. Manchester United and Aston Villa being linked with him. Obviously, Emery likes a Spaniard. Perhaps he could end up there once the window's done. But he's also been linked around Europe, teams like Real Betis, which is the academy he came through with and the team he played for before joining Real Madrid. Bayer Leverkusen and Ajax have also been in for him. Ajax brought a lot of players from Spain this window. Marc-Andre ter Stegen has joined them. Maybe Ceballos is the next experienced La Liga man to join them. But Ceballos, I think he's still a player with a lot to offer. I could certainly see him go into it like Italy, where the pace is a lot slower and he can really get in a team, keep things ticking over. I think he'd do really well for a team like Napoli. So, Dani Ceballos, I'd be surprised if he returned to the Premier League. But a decent team in Italy, maybe like one of the teams I mentioned, Romania, Spain with Betis, or Bayer Leverkusen, I think he could end up at a really decent club still.
Excellent. Manny, do you want to have a quick word on this one, on Dani?
Yeah, he wasn't poor with us at Arsenal. I mean, he did actually, play a big role in helping us win the World Cup, not the World Cup, the FA Cup in 2020. That was during, of course, COVID time, and we were going through a huge crisis. That season, we actually, sacked Unai Emery, which, I felt for the poor bloke. He didn't deserve any of the scorn and the contempt that fans had for him then and fans still have for him now. But, that's sort of the way it is. And, he was one of those players, along with the likes of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Kieran Tierney, Emi Martinez, of course, Granit Xhaka, Nicola Pepe, and several others, who helped us have a wonderful end to the season. And he did do a decent job for us. It was just such a shame that, Arteta decided that he wanted to move on from that profile of player. But it couldn't have been that bad if Real Madrid opted to, have him back playing for them. So he's actually nowhere near as bad a player as people would think. And he certainly wasn't poor for us. He could certainly do a job for, some other teams in Europe. I don't know if playing in the Premier League might be an option unless he's willing to, take a plunge with a mid-table team. We did say that Emery might want to take a chance on him. And interestingly enough, they did try to get João Palhinha from Bayern Munich on loan or permanently, but that fell through. He went back to Portugal to play for Benfica instead. So Villa might actually be well advised to consider Leon Goretzka, 31 years old. He could definitely offer a great deal, and Aston Villa are an exciting club right now. But as far as Ceballos is concerned, again, moving to another club in Spain, this is difficult because he wasn't exactly a legend at Real Madrid like Carvajal or Ramos was, but he did play some games. So it could very well be that a move to another La Liga club for him would be the best thing to do so that he can, just improve a few points and get back to a pretty good level and maybe, make the most of his whatever talent he still might have. Apart from that, maybe going to another European league, maybe the best thing for him would be to join another club in Spain.
There we go. Fair enough, Manny. Let's start to look towards the attacking players then. And the first one up is Jadon Sancho. So much talent, but hasn't, really, at Villa, Didn't really impress, did he? But where do you think is his next destination, possibly then, Dylan?
Yeah, I think now upon reflection, even though he played for Man United, I think this is a sad story around Jadon Sancho. We were talking about not only one of the world's best young players when he joined Man United, downright one of the world's best wingers at the time. The numbers he put up at Dortmund, though not winning a whole lot, were absolutely immense, and he definitely deserved that £73 million move to the Premier League when he made it. Unfortunately, he never found his feet in the Premier League, despite loan moves at Chelsea and Aston Villa. Even tried a loan stint back at Dortmund and didn't really find a home there either. So he has been linked back to the Bundesliga with Dortmund specifically. If they want to have a third attempt at getting something out of Sancho, I think they probably would be wise to. Despite the high wages he'd command, I think there's certainly a home in Germany for Sancho. And he departs Premier League after 112 games, only 25 goal involvement. That's a pretty disappointing return for the player we know Sancho could have been. So he has remained in England. He's training at a non-league team, Flixton, to maintain his fitness. However, I don't think he's going to be remaining on English shores for too much longer. I think back to the Bundesliga, definitely. I'd hate to see him, even at his age, to go to an MLS, to go to a Saudi Arabia, and potentially chase the money that would find him there. Because I do still think if we can get any iteration of Jadon Sancho that showed the form he was at Dortmund, I think we're still dealing with a really great player. Unfortunately, we've been waiting for that for 5 years now, and that's not come to fruition. So if he decides, I want to end my career, get in as much money as I can, while I'm still able to play at a decent level, I wouldn't blame him one bit. Who would? But for now, I do see Sancho going back to the Bundesliga, and I do think, if not at Dortmund, a team like I mentioned before, Leverkusen, RB Leipzig, a team of that caliber as well, around Dortmund, I think could do well with him. So if I had to predict, that's where I'd put my chip.
Excellent. Manny, this comment here from Mr. B. Obviously, Brentford were after him, but they've decided obviously not wanting to pay his wages because they're too high. But obviously has the ability, but he thinks that the issues off the pitch has hampered him a bit. Would you agree with that comment?
Yeah, partly that. And, he was given a chance at Chelsea, and you've got to give him some credit. He did actually end up, winning some silverware with both Chelsea and Aston Villa, the Conference League, of course, and then the Europa League. But I just think that neither Maresca nor Emery were really able to get too much out of him. And the wages, obviously, were a huge stumbling block more than anything else, as Mr. B has rightly said. It could very well be that his Premier League days are done and dusted. Going back to Germany would be something that could be a godsend for him because he knows the league very well. And one really hopes that his career doesn't go the way of a certain Jesse Lingard, who had so many years at Manchester United and was also an England international, but ended up, falling away so badly that we don't even know what's up with him these days. Last I heard, he was in South Korea, of all places. And in fact, I can tell you that Lingard is actually with Campeonato Brasileiro Serie A club Corinthians in Brazil. So he's got an interesting time there trying to learn Portuguese, although I do believe that being the big club that it is, quite a few of the players there know English very well. But he's become a literal journeyman, and I don't want the same thing to happen to, Sancho. He's had a big fall, and he's going to have to work hard to pick himself back up again.
Yes, okay. Yeah, then let's hope he does. Like Mr. B says, he definitely has the ability. And let's hope that, the next club he goes to, he can really hit the ground running. And you never know. Is Dele Alli on the list? Well, we've got a couple of more players. You'll have to wait and see. But the next one, I think someone in the chat will enjoy. And that's Raheem Sterling. He's left Feyenoord, doesn't he? He was at Feyenoord for... I think he played 8 games for them, something like that. And obviously has left after that short-term contract. Again, another player that's got so much talent. I know he's at a different end of his career to maybe Sancho, but a player that probably could still do a job for a club at a certain level. Whether it be Premier League again, I don't think so, but definitely across Europe, I think he could do a job. What's your thoughts, Dylan?
So stop the riots in the chat, because Raheem Sterling is part of the front three, playing off the right wing. Like you said, had a small stint at Feyenoord, but only 8 games there, so wasn't really able to make a mark under. There we go. In the Eredivisie, rumours suggest he could be over to Vasco da Gama in Brazil. Felipe Coutinho is currently playing there. And obviously, like we mentioned before with Jesse Lingard, he could have a former England teammate in his ear saying, life in Brazil is lovely, pay you a good wage, play in a great league, come and join us. And potentially he could end up there. But I do agree with you, Matt. I still feel like, despite how poor he was at the likes of Chelsea and at Arsenal, I do still feel like there's a player that could offer something in Europe. And I wonder whether his ego will allow him to take such a far step down as the Brazilian league, to go out of Europe potentially. I think Feyenoord was a real eyebrow raiser. Would he have really wanted to go there? Maybe he just used it as an opportunity to get his name back in the headlines, back in people's thoughts. But let's make this straight. This is a Premier League legend. 198 goal involvements in 396 games. And I like this comment from Reese. How have they been picked over Mahrez? In their primes, you can both discuss players at length. I do feel Sterling was a better player. But at the minute, Sterling has still got lots of experience to offer. Only 31 years old compared to Riyad Mahrez, who spent years in Saudi and is now 35. So that's why I went for Sterling in my team. And if he wants to stoop down to the Championship, if a team take his wages, certainly think he'd do well there. We know Watford have been in the free agent market looking at Mikel Antonio. Potentially he could end up at a team like that and remain in London, which I think would entice him. But for now, Raheem Sterling, I'm still optimistic about him. I still feel like he could be a great option for some teams in Europe, potentially maybe somewhere like Ajax as well, if he wanted to remain in Holland, if he likes the life out there. Or if he does decide that, yeah, Brazil are giving me a good offer, I want to make the move happen there, then who will be to tell him not to go? I think he's got every right to kind of pick and choose where he wants to go. But at 31, I do think he's still got some years left to go in him. And I still think there's a quality player in Sterling if someone can get it out of him.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point there. And yeah, who knows? But Manny, obviously, he had that spell at Arsenal. But what's your thoughts on his career at this stage? What do you think his next move should be?
I absolutely feel like crying when I think of him, Matthew, because one thing which hasn't been mentioned is that he's had a lot of personal issues off the field. And I think there was an issue with the drink driving charge as well. I think mentally he's just not really into it for some reason. There have been so many things, and this is the tragedy with people like Raheem Sterling and Dele, who, if memory serves me right, were teammates for England at the 2018 World Cup, where he reached the semi-finals. And that was what should have been literally a springboard for greater things for them. Ended up proceeding their, fall. We all know about Dele Alli's fall, and sadly, it's also really tragic to think about that. But Raheem Sterling as well. I mean, what alarmed me was he was actually a part of the World Cup squad in 2022, and since then he was just completely frozen out. And what happened to him at Chelsea under Maresca? I mean, I really dislike the way he was treated by Maresca, being made to sort of train on his own, being a part of that infamous bomb squad, having no involvement with the first team, and just, exiled in every single way. That doesn't do anything for, a player's confidence or morale. Even if his form is slightly tailed off, you do not treat a player that way. And people are going to say, no sympathy for him, he's earned a boatload of money, so he has to take the rough with the smooth. No, it's not all about the money. I mean, sometimes players have to be treated like, decent human beings. And I'm just glad that, after Maresca got the boot, I believe it was Liam Rosenior who decided, it's not worth, torturing him any longer. I will, cut him loose and allow him to, be free and move wherever he likes. Maybe it's a case of PTSD from how the years at Chelsea went, how, the stint at Arsenal went where he didn't exactly hit the ground running, and he was poor for us. But there is a part of me that thinks that maybe he needs to take a little bit of a break from the game, about a year or so, and just to get his head right and really get back into the swim. Just pick himself up mentally and emotionally, take a bit of therapy, and then once he's all right again, he can come back into the game. The biggest problem with that is that he will have to accept that his top level days are done and dusted, and it is tragic to have to come to terms with that, especially when you think of how young he still is and how many years he can offer. But there's a reason why they say it's a long road back, and maybe Sterling should just now focus on getting his head right and just enjoying the remainder of his years away from the media spotlight, just enjoying the game he loves or used to love once again. So I don't think any big club should move in for him at this moment. I think he needs to get himself right, get his head right, and then take it from there.
Yeah, no, fair point, Manny, fair point. And the last one in Dylan's 11. Dylan, your striker, mate. Over to you. Bam.
Yeah, so this team would have been lined up about 2 weeks ago by Dusan Vlahovic after leaving Juventus, but he's since been snapped up by Besiktas, like I mentioned earlier. So leading the line in this team, Bamba Dieng. He's just come off his best league campaign yet at Lorient with 16 goals in 26 games last season. He's got lots of interest from teams in England, France, Spain and Turkey. So there's a lot of European interest in this striker. He's featured for Senegal at the World Cup this season, this summer, and led the line pretty well for him. And he's kept all his options open after leaving the French side. So it could be a real guess, a real shot in the dark at guessing where he would end up this summer. But for now, Bamba Dieng keeping his options open, kept his fitness up with Senegal. And I'd be really intrigued to see where this really physical and pacey striker ends up come the start of the season.
Right. Okay, fair point. And Manny, on the last player from Dylan's Freebie Select 11, what's your thoughts on this one?
I've got some bad news for you, Dylan, mate. The news updates have actually mentioned that this Senegalese lad has gone to Lazio and is currently about to undergo a medical to join the club. So you are going to have to scratch him off and think of a striker who would be eager to come in. As you mentioned, Vlahovic has gone to Turkey, I believe, but it looks as though Dieng is now going to Italy, and Lazio are about to sign him up. So I'm afraid, you're going to have to update this list for next week if you can't think of a free agent striker now.
We do have some mentions in the honourable mentions. So
let's take a look at the honourable mentions, shall we, Dylan? Should we take a look at those?
Yeah, sure. Maybe. I'll leave this open to you guys, actually. We see some of the honourable mentions there. I saw Frank Kessie got mentioned in chat, obviously La Liga winner with Barcelona. Riyad Mahrez, I saw a couple of you saying maybe we should have put him in. But like I said, he is 35 now. Potentially his fitness would be pretty poor. But you see a lot of big names in there, the likes of Yves Bissouma, Felipe Coutinho, Gini Wijnaldum, Tanguy Ndombele, Wilfried Zaha, players who have been around the Premier League for many years. So if I had to say one, why not? Let's put Anthony Martial in this team. We know how he showed flashes of being an excellent player at Manchester United, but in recent years was phased out, had a small stint in Greece with AEK Athens. He's now a free agent at the age of 30. When they signed him for £50 million in 2015, who would have predicted 10 years later he's nowhere near the player that we all expected him to do? And at the age of 30, he hasn't got a club. So for now, if I had to throw one in there, I'd go Martial. I wouldn't disagree with you if you mentioned the likes of Mario Icardi or even Dan's right at the bottom of that list. But yeah, like I say, this is a list of players that are really formerly world class and been at really good, decent levels, but unfortunately don't have that anymore. So what names kind of stand out to you there is what I would say in this section.
Well, I will also just very quickly say I do agree with Harry here. He is still technically a free agent if he's not done his medical. But out of this lot, there is a few interesting names, like you say. Anthony Martial, interesting there. James Rodriguez. He's a centre attacking midfielder. But you know what? I'm going to go with Danny Ings for the Bournemouth connection for me. And I remember
it.
him making his debut as a 17-year-old, and watching him. I can remember he came on. I think it was against Yeovil as a substitute, and he made this great appearance. I think for like 20, 25 minutes, and I thought, you know what, he's going to have a fairly decent career. And I think without the injuries, he probably would have done. But yes, I'm going with Ings. Yeah, I can see that you're laughing there, Mr. B, but you know.
The thing about Ings, and I would agree with you, because as Howard Jones would say, Ings can only get better. What? The only problem is he began his career at Bournemouth, but did go on to play for Southampton. And I'm not too sure what your policy is, Matthew, on guys who, cross the South Coast divide that freely there. But he would still have a lot to offer. One name which does, really stand out to me, Wilfried Zaha. Now, it's mentioned that he's a left winger, but someone like him, of course, obviously has no problems. I mean, he is quite a reasonably prolific goal scorer as well, and maybe he could do the job as a sort of off-the-shoulder striker, if you will. But again, if you want to go for strikers, I mean, Ings might be the better option. I wouldn't touch Icardi with the barge pole, and neither would Craig. He's Argentinian, case closed, and his private life is not really the best. I think Marshall definitely could be a much younger option, but you can't go wrong with Mr. Ings. The only problem is he played for Southampton as well as Bournemouth.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of players that played for both Bournemouth and Southampton over the years. I mean, Bournemouth's all-time leading goal scorer, Ted McDougall, played for both. So, there's always been players that have swapped in between. But yeah, I'm going to go with Ings. But Dylan, thank you very much for putting that little lot together. It's been a fantastic show. It's been great to be with both you gentlemen tonight. We do have one more transfer show before transfer deadline day, and we will be live on transfer deadline night between 9 and 11 p.m. For the last couple of hours of the window. So yes, we do have a couple more transfer shows left until we return with it in January. And also, like I said earlier on in the show, On the Sidelines is back on Saturday morning at 8 a.m. So if you can, do join us for that. I believe Reese was saying he's at work and he's going to try and get it on the loudspeaker. That'd be great if you do, mate. If you do, great. But just very quickly, in the there's
I believe there's a two-parter, Matt. I think that's passionate. No, that's real.
That's real passion. That's taking you some time to write that, Reese. A lot of respect to you, mate. But from myself and my two guests, until we.
Is it me or have we just lost Matt?
Nah, it might be his Wi-Fi, but
it lasted so long. We did so well, all of us, with our Wi-Fi. I'm worried we've just lost Matt.
AFC Bournemouth fans, we have got something special for you. Up the Cherries has partnered with Kitbag to offer you special deals on your AFC Bournemouth shirts for the 26-27 season. Are you after the traditional home shirt made by Hummel? Are you after the away vibrant shirt in purple? Or maybe the marshmallow third shirt? Whatever your choice is, you can get exclusive deals, discounts, and offers through Kitbag and through the link that is on the screen now. Scan it with your phone, the QR code, and it will take you straight away to the Kitbag site where all the details will be. We will also be putting up any special codes that you may need. So go check out Kitbag, the leading sports goods seller in the UK and beyond for all your AFC Bournemouth goods.
TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.
I should be like you, Mel.